Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. For my next build, I'm building this Heller refrigerated trailer scale 1/24. Now, this build is going to be a straight out of the box build, and it's going to be linked in with my truck and trailer build for the Queen project. I highly recommend that you watch the other videos in the playlist that I'll put a link for, so you can get the overall effect. So this is going to be done in a couple of parts, and part one is just building up the framework and the wheels. So let's get on with it. So to start off with, I'm painting the support struts that hold up the trailer when it's in a starter position, and then those are getting painted in dark iron XF84. And while I've got the same colour out, I'm going to be painting the suspension springs in the dark iron. So the wheel hubs for this kit come in two halves, and they're just normal plastic, not chrome. So I'm painting these in Rebel Aquacolor number 90 silver. I was going to do aluminium, but I thought the silver stood out better. And just roughly painting the lines and outlines on the one of the cylinders. So the band that holds the cylinder is going to be Rebel Aquacolor 91, and the outside of the band, the main cylinder, is Rebel Aquacolor 99 aluminium. It's just a rough paint until I join them together. Now the tiles come in a nice soft rubber, but I think that I've never came across before. The tiles are actually split in two. You have to put them together. Now, speaking to a couple of people, they think it's only Heller that does this, so I'm not sure, because it's the first time I've built a kit like this from Heller or anything else. Now it says cement them, but they actually interlock well. Okay, apart from this one, there was a big hole in the tyre, like it had been ripped off the sprue or badly moulded. Luckily we had a spare tyre, so I didn't have to use it. The extendable leg supports is the first main part to be assembled, and it's just as simple as gluing the two parts together. Assembling the wheel hubs and wheels, and I think they got to go quite strangely. There's like a cone shaped thing that fits into it, and then you glue it. It needs a bit of pressure to hold on to it, and try and put them on straight, because it's easy for them to go off centre. But once they're all done, it's just a simple case of pushing the tyre onto the tyre wall, and it pops right in, like so. And the first cylinder has been done. Now this one's not going to be used until later on in the build, but it's calling for it to be made up now, so I didn't see any reason not to build it. Now this is the cradle for the spare wheel. There's actually room to get two wheels in it. If you wish, you can use that spare tyre that comes with the kit, but the instructions only call for one anyway, but there is room for two. Because the tyre was so damaged on the other one, I've got no choice but to put in the one. But it's a fairly straightforward build, with the two side struts going over the cross beams. And then once that was done, it was placing in more cross beams for support. This needed a couple of clips just to keep it in place, because there's no location points as such to hold it, so just be careful when you put it on. So I needed about 4 clips in the end, just to hold it, one on each side, but be careful your clips don't actually move the part. So once it's all together, it's time to paint it. So it's getting painted in Rebel Aquacolor 09 Acrosite. And now the paint's dry, it's time to put on the tile. First of all, there's on the side that I'm not putting a tire on, there's a little tie bar that just goes on, and same with the opposite side, there's a tiny little location point, so just make sure you get that right. So you have to put the tyre on first, line it up with the hole, then put in the tie bar. So then it moved on to painting the axles, and these are in Tamiya's XF84 dark iron, and time to sub-assemble the crossbeam parts that hold the two frame parts together, and a small sub-assembly of a little toolbox. And once that was right, it was painted in railway aluminium 99. Time to assemble the axles and wheels. There's a slightly different on each one, so make sure you follow the instructions. The first one has little brackets going on. Well, they all have little brackets going on, but there's tiny little other brackets you put on one axle, different on another, and so forth. So just make sure you're doing them in the right order. But once they go on, put on the hubs first before any support brackets have to go on. This little pipework is going in after you fit the cap. It helps keep the cap in the right position. More sub-assembly of the wheel axles going on. Just putting in a couple little brackets here. I'm going on to the main section a little bit and painting the more suspension strings in Tamiya's Dark Iron XF84 before I join the halves together. And you'll notice on the bottom screen a better view of the axles now. So the two halves of the suspension spring going together. I get quite easily a clip in. Did need one or two little clamps, but that's just because the plastic was slightly warped, but nothing major. It's something that can happen at any time with thin bits of plastic. So this clamp's going on now. I put them on each main part of the spring, just to be on the safe side that none popped off. I decided to paint the cross beam support for the sash on the sprue, and these are getting painted in Rev Colour 09 Acrosite. Moved on to the two main frames now, and I'm painting this in Revel Colour 9 Acrosite. I'm painting on with a big flat brush, quite generally just to get a good coverage, and then I'll put another coat on if and when required. So that's two coats on. It will need a third coat, so depending on how thick you put the paint on, always put it on thin if you can. So now I'm just building up the frame itself. So putting in support beams. There's one cylinder, then there's a couple of L supports that go in, and I don't know what the cylinder's for, but I've had a look online and it's all the same colour as the frame, so that's what I did. So the cross supports going in, there's nice little brackets to line them up with, so you shouldn't run into any difficulty getting these on straight. Now with bonding the two halves together, I would suggest that don't wait until the support frames are completely solid and positioned. Bond both together when you've got a little bit of room to move, that the supports are pliable, so you can just line it up, then gently slot them into the opposite bracket. And then once you've got them in basically the right position, just manipulate them with a pair of tweezers or whatever tool you prefer, just to get them lined up. You shouldn't need any clamps or things like that at this point, and you don't want to put them under clamp anyway, because you may bow it. So just be careful when you're doing it, a little bit patience, and you should be okay. And now for the trail support legs. Now I built these on here, and in the end I had to take them off. Well, when I say I had to, I had no choice. They popped off. So if you're building this, there's an insert that goes inside the leg for the foot plate. Put that in before you attach it, as it just makes it a lot easier. So next to the mud flaps and protectors. Now these are a bit difficult to get in position because the contact points are very small for such a big part, So again, you're going to have to be patient on this. Put them in, and once you get them in, try not to move it until it's solid. And it was the same with the smaller one as well. Now you can put them up against the frame and its lip, but it didn't look right to me. So I just had to persevere until I got it done. So now I'm putting in the support struts for the legs, which do come off eventually, but for now I didn't know that, so I'm just putting them on. So now I'm making the crank that moves the feet plate up and down for the trailer. It's wise to assemble this before you paint it on this one. Next to go on is the frame support system for the leg struts. Again, simple fitting here. Just line them up as always. It was handy that it still had a bit of plate on the struts to push them in for it to hold. But there's no location points on the crossbeam section that I was able to see. The instruction indicate there should be, but I couldn't see any, and I checked the parts to see whether I had something in the wrong place, but I didn't. But in actual fact it made it easier to fit the parts because of that. And once it was dry, I just quickly painted it with the frame colour paint, the Revlon colour 09 Acrosite. Again, this is just a quick paint. Needs a couple of coats, but there's other things getting added onto it, as you can see here. This is the main bar at the back of the trailer, push bar, bumper, whatever it's called. That goes on the back. Again, there's little pins that just slot into place. And now for the inner part of the leg supports. So the main shaft is painted in Tamiya XF84, and the bottom feet plate are painted in Aquacolor 91 steel. Now, as you see, there's me fitting them now, but the struts popped off because they were quite tight, so we're pushing it right in. You don't need any glue for this part, but once they were in, refitting them was okay. So going on to the main axles now, and picking the parts that you want to put in first. Took a bit of time to what order I want to get them in, but once I was happy with it, it was fairly simple. I moved on to painting in dark iron Tamiya XF84 the supporting axles for the suspension system. Well, the wheels and suspension system. Placing on all the little bits and pieces. Half these parts I have no idea what they do. I'm not mechanically minded, but it says put it on, so hey, I put it on. And moving on to one of the cylinders, I assume this is an air cylinder, I'm not sure, but the bands are painted in the Revlon Aquacolor 09 Acarite, and the tank itself is painted in Revlon Aquacolor 99 aluminium. So I just waited until the bands were dry before painting in the overall colour. Adding more parts on that, I really don't know what they're for, but again, I put them on. Later on they are getting painted in the same colour as the main frame. And the last crossbeam for the leg support is going on. Unpainted again. I'll be painted once it's all dry. And now the axles are dry, they're a simple case of just fitting into the locations. The holes were exact same size as you needed to be, no need to open them up a bit. And now it's time to put the wheels on the axles. So they're just pushed in, then a little hubcap goes on top, and that's only bit you want a glue if you want the wheels to be free moving. So nice pair of tweezers, just because it is a very small part, and a little bit of glue inside, and just place it on top. And now the cylinder's dry, it's just a case of putting it together, touching up the paint before going on the main frame. So next part to go, sub-assembly part to go on is this little toolbox. Easy enough to go on, but it does have two very small contact points. So the drying time is a little bit longer than you would normally expect until it's solid. If not, it'll just flop off. And we get to placing the wheels on now. The brackets just line up with the brackets on the frame. You put them on and gently push them down. And the last wheel's going on. Again, just line them up and then push them down. Next is the cylinder. It's easy enough to put on. You have to stick it at an angle, then straighten it up just because of its size. One part does stick out a little bit, but it has a nozzle there, so I assume it's meant to do that. Just make sure you get it in the right position though, because the next is the spare wheel cradle, and that butts right up against the cylinder. This is why the cylinder's got to be in the correct position, and you can't put on the cylinder last because the way the cylinder fits on, you wouldn't be able to get it on. So you have to go cylinder then cradle. But if you're not sure, leave the glue off the cylinder until you put on the cradle, then you'll be able to slide it into position. And then it's two little brackets on the side of the cradle, which once it's dry they'll be getting painted in the same colour as the frame. Well, that brings this part 1 to an end. The video's a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I did want to get all this part done before part 2, which will be putting on the box onto the frame. There's a couple of tiny little bits to be added onto the frame first, but it's all really going to be part of the main box, so this is why I'm going to finish it here. So thank you all very much for watching. Check out my other videos if you can, and feel free to leave any comments. Particularly make sure you check out the builds in this group for the Queen and Truck Trailer project that I'm doing. I'll put a link up for you to follow if you don't know where it is. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.